Hey everybody, this is Laurie Meyer from stampedgreetings.com, and it's been a little bit since I've had an opportunity to put a video out, and I appreciate your patience. But today we're going to do a really fun card. This is made with the all zipped up dies, and these are ones that are available only online, part of the online exclusives. And you will see when I post this and include a little bit of a write-up that I was really inspired by a fabulous, talented paper artist, Patty Bennett. Patty has been part of Stampin' Up! For a long time. I had an opportunity to briefly say hello to her at a recent onstage event. And another lady there said that I should look at her video about this particular bundle, and I did. And I'm very glad that I did because she gave some great tips on how to make these. I'm essentially going to mimic what I did when I made this card, but I have done a lot of shortcutting. I'm going to do the magic of television and show you what I did to die cut, but I'm not going to run things through my die cutter because I have everything already prepped. But you will be able to go back and do this without a problem. I want to let you know what the parts are that are involved in this card. There are not many. One is a piece of designer series paper. I chose the perennial lavender. I just love this paper, and it measures 4 inches. This will be in the instructions too, but 4 inches by 5 1/4. So again, 4 inches by 5 1/4. So when you put that on a regular A2 size card, which is what this is, you're going to get a nice little border all the way around. You're going to want a second piece of the designer series paper, the same size, again, 4 inches by 5 1/4. Make sure that they work together well. And if you notice, the pattern on the right is what I'm using kind of for the shirt, and the pattern on the left is going to be for the sweater, jacket, zipped up hoodie, whatever it is that you're going for in the design. I do have an extra piece of the second pattern because I will use that for the pockets. And I just have the same pattern. Obviously, you can make these pockets whatever you want. They could be cardstock, they could be designer series paper, they could be run through an embossing machine. There's so many options. And this is about 2.5 by 4. And you'll be able to gauge that when you look at the pocket dies. So those are 3 of the pieces of paper. We also need a piece of foil, and I'm using silver foil. This very obviously, evidently, is for the zipper and the pull, and I chose silver. Any kind of metallic cardstock will work brilliantly. You can also use white paper. I mean, we have all sorts of colors of zippers, so don't get hung up on using a metallic necessarily. You could pick any color that will work with the combination of the patterns and the papers that you have. And then I did have a piece of cardstock. This is, I'd say, around, let me measure it real quick. It's about 2 inches wide and it's about 8.5. You do not need that much because the only thing that I used this color cardstock for, and this is Blackberry Bliss, one of my absolute favorites, is for the little borders right around where the zipper is. And it just gives a nice finish and a contrast between the patterns. So we're going to use that with some of the dies. So these are the pieces of paper that we're going to turn into this card. We're also going to have a piece of cardstock for the A2 card base. And in my case, I chose to use thick, basic white. Use any color that you would like. I thought there were a lot of colors in the finished card, and I really wanted to keep the card base pretty simple. So it's a regular A2 size. We all know that means 8.5 by 5.5 scored at 4.25. Okay. But let me jump in and I want to show you how this is made. And I think you are going to just love the dies and love the process. I am just going to be using the dies. I'm not going to actually add in a sentiment, but I will show you the stamps as well. These are the dies that come with the bundle. They're so fun and so cool, and they work incredibly well together. We're especially going to be using the zippers, the top of the zipper, the bottom of the zipper. These two pieces are going to be used for the definition right around the zipper. You've got two zipper pulls. These are the pockets, and then there's some other circles and stars and hearts that you can use to decorate your pockets. You can put little pieces inside your pocket, just tuck them right by the edge of the pocket to make it look like they're inside. So a lot of options with that. And then the stamp set that comes with the bundle is this one. Very fun. I love this zipping by to say hello. You could also say zipping by to say happy birthday and just not stamp on that hello piece. A lot of different ways to use this. But like I said, I'm going to concentrate on the dies. Okay, first thing we need to do. I strongly recommend that when you are making your, I'm going to call mine a sweater. Yeah, we'll call it a sweater. When you're making your sweater, use a grid, a piece of grid paper or something so that you have at least a little bit of a ruler. The reason for that is I'm going to take the piece of designer series paper that is going to make the two sides of my sweater. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the V with the top part of the die that is going to form the top part of the zipper. And I want to center it as best as I can. It does not need to be perfect. And the best way that I think to do this is just to make sure that you have a piece of grid paper. And that way you can place your die so that you're going to get about in the middle. So I'm going to place mine up at the top where I've got that ruler, and I'm going to put it on 1 to 4 or 0 to 4 really, and just align it. And I'm going to stick a piece of Post-it note. This Post-it note dispenser is wonderful. This is really, really nice for keeping paper down on paper like this, or when you're trying to make sure that a die doesn't move when it goes through a die cutting machine. It's also fabulous. Now, when you look at this die, one thing to kind of pay attention to, where it's going to cut is going to be on the outside. You can see that blade on the outside on both sides. So where it's coming into the V, it's also going to cut the teeth on the zipper, but it's not going to cut right here on that upper part. We're just going to get an embossing of the teeth down here at the bottom. So part of this is embossing at the bottom, and then up at the top, it's cutting. It also is open-ended at the top. So that means when you place it down, you want to get it as close to the top of your paper as you can. And what I'm doing here is I'm trying to get it in the middle. So 2 inches is the middle. And if I go to 3 and have it go over a little bit and go back to 1 and have it go over a little bit, that's going to be pretty much in the middle. And if I Post-it note down that die and run that through my die cutting machine, through the magic of television, this is what happens. This is what I will get. Notice a couple of things. Notice how the top part is cut out. Well, there's a reason for that, because when we cut out the zipper, we need to make sure that we have just the zipper piece. And we need to have both sides. So you remember that I said on the outside is where that blade is. So this is what the first piece is going to look like. I've got the pieces that are open, and then it's kind of hard to see, but right down in here, I can see where the teeth are. If I open that up, you can see where the teeth have cut into the bottom. Okay, so that's step number one. Step number two, we're actually going to create the shirt in the back, and we're going to glue that to this piece, and then we'll start working on the zipper. So there are a lot of ways to do this. I'm going to use this piece for the shirt. I could actually take that and I could just glue that together, and I would have the shirt and it would show as, you know, a different pattern. It will be more distinctively different when we add the zipper. But there are some things you can do with the piece that you're going to use as the shirt to make it look a little bit more fancy. And what I used in order to do that is a punch. This is the heartfelt hexagon punch, and it gives just a really nice neckline. You can see that the neckline was made from that shape. When you look at your punches, you're going to find that there are several that you can use. Circles, squares, triangles. There are some that have a little bit of a definite shape in one area. So you can make some really nice necklines. If you are particular and you want to try and get that in the middle, meaning the punch in the middle, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to just fold that piece in half, only up at the top. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a score right at the top. And I know I'm going to be cutting that out, so it doesn't matter. Nobody's going to see it. I'm going to use this later. This is a crumb cake marker. And all I'm going to do is give myself a visual of where that middle is. And then I'm going to get my punch. I'm going to turn this upside down and my punch upside down. And then I'm going to line up that line about in the middle and look left and right to see that I've got about the same amount of paper hanging off the edge of each side. And then it looks pretty straight. And now I have the neckline that I'm going to put behind that piece. Let me grab a piece of paper so you can see this a little bit better. Now, when you look at a shirt or any kind of top, typically there is some kind of finishing on a neckline, some kind of just a little bit of a darker color so that it's visible. And I don't know if you can see here, but there is a little bit of a darker line. So what you might want to do, this is totally up to you, is grab a marker. This is a crumb cake one. And all I'm going to do, I'm going to flip this piece over, and I'm just going to take the brush end of the marker, and I'm just going to go right over the edge of that paper. And it is going to be super, super subtle and just give a little bit of color, just so it looks like there's a line there. You could use blends if you want to, and see how you can see that better now. And it will be much more pronounced when it's on the paper. But you could use blends if you wanted to, rather than a marker. Sorry about that. And it will do the exact same thing. Okay, we are now ready to glue these two pieces together. They are the same size. They're 2 by 5 1/4. So I'm going to glue these two together. There's going to be a little bit of an area where the glue might be coming out from underneath. So I'm going to put a silicone mat down. And that way, if there is glue, it will dry on the silicone mat, and I will have a much better probability of getting it off without any kind of problem. Now, when you put these two pieces together, You do need to be a little particular about where you put your glue. I've turned this over. Obviously, this is going to be the front, so I've turned it on the back. And I want to make sure that these flaps are glued down well. And that means I'm going to make sure I put a kind of a bead or a line of glue. Not a whole heck of a lot, but going up where that is open and able to move. And then I'm also going to make sure that down here where the zipper will be attached, that I'm putting some glue. Liquid glue, my preference on this, because you are going to want a little bit of wiggle room when you put all of this together, just to make sure that it's all lined up. So I'm just dotting. Then I'm going to bring my shirt back in. Make sure that I have that right way up. Just going to flip this over, probably get glue on myself, but oh well. And then I'm going to line up the bottom corner and sort of place it down and see how well we can do it. So I'm just trying to line up those pieces of paper and go ahead and glue that down. And these little flaps might move a tad, so you just want to sort of push them back so they will line up against the V. And you can see I did have some glue, but that's going to be okay. So step one, all set. And if your mind is not already going with how many different combinations you can do on this, it will. You are going to look at designer series paper in a totally different way. And all those stacks that you have, that we all have, that have been laying around forever and a day, you're going to be able to use them up. I guarantee it. Okay, the next thing is we need to make the silver zipper, because that will be the next thing we're going to add. We're going to create the silver zipper, the top and the bottom, and then we're going to add it to what we just did. So this is the really, really cool piece, I think. And here's how we do it. We're going to grab whatever you're going to use to make your zipper. And again, I'm just using a piece of silver foil. So about 2.5 inches. You're not going to need the full length. This is somewhere around 8.5 or so. I don't need to be super, super precise this time. I just need to make sure that I have the top of this die at the top of the paper. And I'm going to put that down. And then through the magic of television, run that through the die cutting machine. And the result is something that looks like this. So it's going to look just like what you did on the paper that we cut, where you've got the opening at the top, and you've got, you can see here, you've got those teeth that were die cut in down at the bottom. So the next thing we need to do is we need to finish that zipper. And the way to do that is to get the other die from the die set. It's this one. This is the other die that we're going to use. And again, you're going to notice on this die that on each side is a blade that cuts through, and the teeth also cut through. This is a puzzle, literally. What we're going to do, I'm going to show it to you, and then I'll do it again. We're going to turn the die over so that you really can't visually see the teeth. And you're going to move that die until you feel it lock in, because it's the same pattern where the teeth that we saw follow all the way down. So these teeth are in the same pattern as these, and they're going to lock right in. So you just put it over and just kind of play around. You will feel it when it locks, and you're not going to be able to move it. So once you get that, again, through the magic of television, you would put that die down on the tin foil or the silver foil, whatever you're using for your zipper. Run that through your die machine. And again, through the magic of television, this is what you end up with. And it is just stinking cool. The teeth will part, but right here, these teeth are not separated. So the two sides are not going to come apart. You don't want to take them apart. And then what you're going to do is you're going to grab that piece that you started with, where you had the two pieces together. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue the zipper right on the top. And there's a pattern to look for. So if you look at, since we use the same die to cut this piece as we did to cut the full zipper, the pattern is just going to fall right on top. And you're going to glue that right straight down. I'm going to grab the silicone mat one more time. And on this one, I'm going to put the glue on this piece, and I'm going to make sure that I put it where I know the silver foil zipper is going to come in. So I'm going to go right near where the teeth are and go all the way to the top. Over here where the teeth are. And then down here, I can see where those teeth have cut into the paper. And that's kind of a visual for me to go straight to the bottom because I want that zipper to adhere all the way to the bottom. And then I may have to tilt this just a bit toward me. I'm going to just put this piece down right on top of the other. And because I'm using that liquid glue, I have a little bit of grace to get it where it needs to go. And you can see now that we're starting to form that zipper. And if you have any extra glue like I do there, don't worry about it. Just grab an extra piece of cardstock. I'm going to grab one that I have off to the side here. I'm just going to kind of scrape that off and I'll put it on my silicone mat. Or you could just put it on a piece of paper that you have. Okay. Now, obviously, we need to trim this, but we're not going to do that just yet because I want to put these side pieces on, the ones that I made out of the Blackberry Bliss cardstock first, and then I will trim everything. And before I do that, I'm also going to make sure that I have my zipper pulls because I just cut the full zipper, which means I'm going to have some scrap of the foil. So if you use that scrap, there are two zipper pulls. They are dies that are in the die set. They're two different shapes. You can put them on that scrap piece of foil, run those through your die cutting machine, and then you will have a couple of little zipper pulls that you can use. I've seen some really cute things with this. Some people make tassels and put them on the end of the zipper pull. Some people will use some of the dies that are in the set, like the hearts and the flowers, and they will add them in different colors. Some just really, really cool ideas. But I just cut out my zipper pulls and I'm going to put those to the side. We'll put those on in just a second. So we'll just put them off to this side for now. The second to the last thing that you need to die cut are the sides. I don't know if these are really lapels. Maybe I'll call them lapels. I don't think they really are. But these two pieces that are going to go right next to your zipper and hide some of that excess foil. There are two dies that are in the die set. They look like this. They are the exact same size. So you have a choice. You can run these both at the same time and cut out 2, or you can run 1 twice. When you die cut these, a couple things to notice is there's not a blade at the end of either end. So you will have to snip them off at the end to get them out. Not a biggie. And just go ahead and get those on your cardstock or whatever you're going to use. Run them through your die cutting machine. And again, through the magic of television, we have these 2 pieces. You can see they are long purposely because you have options on how long you make your piece. You don't need to make it 5 1/4. You could make it shorter if you wanted, but I'm going to go ahead and put these on. I find the best way to do this is to put the glue on the zipper, on the part where you're going to cover up. You do not need a lot, and you have a choice as far as where on that zipper you're going to put these pieces. You can put them close to the teeth. You can put them further away from the teeth. It is completely up to you. I'm going to go ahead and get the glue on both sides so that I can do this all at one time. And then after we have these pieces on, we will trim off the extra for both the zipper and these trim pieces. You'll notice on these trim pieces that there's a little indentation. That's meant to go right where the zippers meet the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to put that in. And again, you can make this as close to the zipper as you want, as close to the teeth, or as far away as you would like. And if you get that little corner about right, this is going to go, the top of that piece is going to go right up to the top of your card. I'm going to flip this around and I'm just going to mimic what I did and put this on and then just allow it to dry. And again, it's nice if you have the liquid glue because you can still kind of finagle these to get them in the same place so it looks nice and even. And I did get a teeny bit of glue, extra glue. So I'm just going to come back in with a scrap piece of cardstock, pick that off, and it should be okay. Just want to make sure that these are going over the top. All right, so we have our zipper together. Super fun. Now I'm just going to trim off the excess if there is any. And I'm going to do that by simply turning this over using a pair of sharp scissors. Some people are particular about scissors if they're going to be cutting through glue. And I just like sharp, especially if I have a couple of pieces of cardstock that I'm cutting through. And then just at the top, if there's anything hanging over, just give that a little snip. And it might be really small. And I think that looks pretty good. All right, we've only got a couple more things to do before we finish, but we're at the point now where we can go ahead and put this piece on the card front because everything else is going to be added just by going straight down. So I'm going to go ahead and get my card base, and this is just going to be added directly on the top. And put some glue around the areas that I want. I had a lot of fun going through looking at designer series paper that I've got, coming up with all sorts of combinations for men, women, kids. Lot of different ideas. And I think you will find the same thing. So I'm just going that straight down. And you can see where the little bit of marker on that neckline is pulling that out just a little bit. just to give it a little bit of distinction. So let's look at where we are and where we're going, because there are only a few things left to do. Two things that we're missing. One is the zipper pull, and the other is the pockets. So I'm going to grab the zipper pull, and the one that I'm going to use, I'll probably just mirror this. I used both the zipper pulls on the example, so you can see the difference. And I'm just going to go ahead and use that one again. Here's my suggestion. Some people put the glue dots on these. I'm not going to do a glue dot. I'm just going to do a little dot of glue wherever you're going to attach that zipper pull. And then you can dot off a teeny bit of that glue just so that there's not too much that is going on. And you kind of want it right where those teeth are separating, so it looks like it's doing its job. So kind of right in there. And again, liquid glue will help you put this where you want it to go. Okay, we've got one more thing to do, and that is the pockets. And a quick tip on that. Let me get this out of the way. Well, let me show you what I'm aiming for. If you look at something that is made well when it's sewn, your eyes will go from left to right, up, down, whatever it is. And you're going to see that the pattern is pretty much the same, right? So you've got this hex row right here, and you've got the same pattern going visually across. So what I suggest is when you die cut these, and there are two little dies, that you intentionally die cut them together and try to visually get them so that they're in line. And that way, when you cut them out and you use them, they will look like the pattern is going straight across. So if you do that, if you put those through your die cutting machine, again, through the magic of television, we have these two pieces. And I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the shirt, where I'm just going to outline all the way around these. I always turn over anything that I'm putting an outline on the edge, because inevitably I will make a screw up, and the screw up will show on whatever side I'm looking at. I may not hit the corner right. I might add just a little too much. But if you do it this way and you turn it back to the side that you're going to use, you're not going to see if you screwed up. So I'm just literally kind of going over each of the edges. And it's subtle, but you can see the difference between the two of those. So I'm going to do that again. And then add those on. Some of the examples I've seen with this design, for example, the pockets. They're super cute if they are embossed. And there's some really fun textures that you can use. You can also intentionally put a message so that it looks like it is hanging out of the pocket, sort of tucked into the pocket. And that can be part of your sentiment. But there are all sorts of different ideas. And then I'm simply going to adhere these. And I'm just going to do it one at a time. Make sure that they're as aligned as they can be, one to the other. It really doesn't matter what side you start with. And what I'm trying to do, just for my own sake of sanity, is kind of do the same size border on either side and on the bottom. And that way there's a prayer that they will look like they're straight. And using that liquid glue again, I can move them around a bit if I want to. And then the last bit. Now for sentiments on these cards, a lot of times the ones that I've seen have the sentiment really on the inside of the card. I've also seen some where the design is a little bit shorter. You know, the piece of paper isn't 5 1/4, maybe 4 3/4. So coming down to about here, you'd still have room to put your pockets. And then you could put your sentiment down at the bottom. You know, you could easily, if you wanted to, move this up a little bit and then put zipping by to say hello down at the bottom, or perfect on the inside for zipping by to say hello. But those are the steps to use to make this kind of card. The possibilities are endless with the patterns of paper, the differences in the necklines. Think about if you have a feminine one and you wanted to maybe even put a necklace up at the top, or you could have the necklace coming down underneath and, you know, laying under the neckline. You can also put skin tones behind this. If you have a piece of paper with a particular skin tone, you could put it so that it was level on the top with the sweater, and it would just have a neckline that would be showing right here. So again, all sorts of possibilities. I know this is all the same pattern, but it just shows you that there are some really quick ways to pull this together. Again, thank you to Patty Bennett for her amazing insight into how to use this bundle. It was really great to watch that and then to play around, because it definitely helped me be able to pull these together. And I really, really think you'll have fun using it. So enjoy. Would love to see what you make. And until next time, Inky hugs.